My guest today I usually call the queen of phenomenon-based learning in Finland. Anna-Mari Jaatinen is an award-winning, highly experienced forerunner principal from the city of Helsinki in Finland. She has a pedagogical vision, mission and ethos of real 21st century education and modern skills of coaching and well-being leadership. With special expertise in educational development, agile change management and leadership, she has work experience in several organizational levels and multi-professional teams around the education sector. As an experienced teacher and principal coach in many countries beyond Finland, Anna-Mari focuses on creativity, collaborative and digital learning, intercultural communication, coaching and lecturing. Probably not last and definitely not least, she is a pedagogical leadership expert on the Finnish K-12 school concept. Welcome to the podcast, Anna-Mari.
Hello, really nice to meet you, Joni, and lovely to be here.
Excellent to have you here. So let's start with your story, how you ended up in education, if we go back a few years.
I started my university studies I think I matriculated and got my master degree in the year 2000. And after it, university studies in Helsinki University, I started my career first like a teacher. And I was just a class teacher, and my passionate was to develop education about 5 years. And I worked in a development group in a school and leadership team already. And then I got possibility to start my deputy headmaster role in my school. And after 1 year, I started my principal career, and it's now about 19 years.
Wow.
I have very strong experience to develop school community and school culture. And I started first to develop well-being of school community and student well-being. And then I continued to develop digital learning. It was quite soon during my principal career, I started to make a huge reform in digital learning with my staff.
That is so interesting, because before everyone started talking about digital learning, I know you were really a pioneer in the space. But before we talk about digital learning and your projects related to that, how was your understanding about the need of the well-being culture? Did that come before the digital learning culture, or what was your starting point, and why did you see the need for a focus on well-being so early?
I think that the most important milestone in education is well-being. Totally well-being and right support for each children in learning and well-being. So that's something really, I think we can talk about root of education. And I think that it's important to understand that digital learning is something that you can start to get higher level learning for children and higher level creativity, higher level personal learning paths for children. And then it's important that we can develop all school community learning using digital tools. So they are like a good couple. So I think
Definitely.
that it's important that we develop both of these sides of education.
And when did you start incorporating digital learning elements into your culture? And if you start by saying when, more or less, what year did you start developing these well-being cultures and communities? If you look at,
I started to develop it just 2004. I started my principal career. I started to develop our student welfare team work, and I wanted to open our work structures of our student welfare team to all my staff. And it was very successful, because then teachers understood that how effective we worked for those children were during that time at our school. And I think that I started similar time to develop this digital learning, and it has been very, very interesting adventure to develop digital learning, because first I thought when we developed 2007, 2008, our short movie program for all classes and had a wonderful show for parents, I thought this is something so top we have done now that we can't develop anymore. But like we know, digitalization and digital tools has developed strongly and very effective way after it.
So before we go into your projects, because you have an amazing project that I want to highlight very much today, what inspired you to have this well-being and then the digital learning focus so early, since it was not yet in the Finnish curriculum on a general level, and since you really were a pioneer in Helsinki and in Finland in general? Did you have colleagues in the industry here in Finland that you could collaborate with, ideate with, brainstorm with, or how and why did you get started so early?
Yes, there wasn't many schools in Finland then who developed digital learning, and I had a lot of networkers in all country level schools. There was a couple of schools in Oulu, in Jyväskylä, in Eastern Finland, some schools who were very passionate to develop digital learning, and I cooperated with them. And then, of course, our educational department at Helsinki City were very interested in to support, for example, our facilitation and everything like that. So we got quite well our, for example, laptops, computers for children and everything like that. It was very strong support from them. But I like to cooperate a lot with different companies and with different very expert talent people who want to develop strongly as a pioneer in everything. So that's why I have cooperated with different companies and with ministry workers and with innovators in all sectors. So it's you can get very open-minded for yourself even then when you just cooperate with them.
Definitely. And when it comes to the pedagogic models around that, for one, to mention the phenomenon-based learning model, what models did you start incorporating, and at what point did you start with this phenomenon-based learning?
I think that we could talk that this short movie program was our first phenomenon-based, all-school community phenomenon-based learning program. But after it, we have done 3 Magic Forest musical with my all school community. So we had a strong contribution with our staff and many different kind of creative learning practices with all classes. So all classes got similar experience of creative learning, and on the other hand they produced a musical in the end of term.
And when was this? Was this 2014-15?
It was 2011 first time, and then there was a couple of years between other musicals, and then I think last one was 2015-2016. So
Yes.
we have done 3 time musicals, and so our school have own stories, own poems, own songs, and everything like that, and short movies and great 3 musicals. So we have produced all together those musicals.
And can you detail a little bit the structure there? Because the amazing thing is that you have on an entire school level a phenomenon that you're working across the entire school in sub-projects during the entire school year. So can you detail the structure, how it was developed, and then what leaders you had, let's say, taking the teachers into account, because you were the driving force from the beginning as the principal, so you have the authority to decide pretty much whatever you wanted to do in your, let's say, school environment. So if you try to inspire other principals to take this kind of initiative And then what kind of roles did you need to help you when it comes to teachers? So the basic structure, sub-projects, then projects, maybe phenomenon for an entire year, and maybe how people could maybe try it for a couple of months.
I think that we can have different kind of processes, but what we did, we had different aims and goals for every month from August till May when musical show was ready. So we have collaborative and cooperative working together, and on my opinion, principal need to have very strong pedagogical leader role, and deputy principal could be a good team member for her, and then leadership team can support all school community to produce all those elements. For example, our first step was that we find out name for the musical. Then we decided it's Magic Forest musical. Then we decided to have brainstorming in classrooms, that they had brainstorming what kind of fantasy name we have on that musical. And when they have got that name, they made an art picture. And when they had done art picture, the principal had a storytelling lesson for each classes. And each classes made a wonderful, wonderful creative stories, what could be part of the manuscript of the musical. And then when story had been done, then they did poems from stories. And from poems, they composed collaboratively own song. And it's part of musical. So there is different step how children create from zero something magical.
Yeah, and that's so amazing because you did so many different things. And what I want you to add here and highlight is how you connected that with the standard curriculum. So, for example, English classes and so on. And how did you integrate the normal curriculum or the topic subject-based learning with this phenomenon?
Because they made art pictures, it's like art lessons. During art lessons, children made that art picture, and it's about 5 to 10 lessons. And when they made that storytelling story, it's only 1 to 2 lessons, mother tongue lesson. It's just normal learning.
Yes, on a weekly basis.
Yes, just normal learning. And after it, they used mother tongue lesson to make a poem. And then they used music lessons, 1 to 3 lessons that they composed music song from the poem. And after it was really easy just to start to cooperate with manuscript team. I got work applications from 5th and 6th graders, and they start to collect all these creative materials together that it could be musical.
Fantastic. So
sounds so easy. It's not so easy, but it sounds really easy, and it's just normal learning. There are just normal curriculum subject aims, how children just work much more collaborative way and teacher work collaborative way, and we produce in a school level something really valuable and great.
Yes, it might sound easy, but you really need to have the common vision very clearly understood and communicated across all levels, and have strong leadership and collaboration across all levels.
Yes, and I made a collaborative timeline for all our school community, so everybody knew what is the goal of the month. What do we need to do? What kind of lessons we need to have during this month, that everything will be ready in the beginning of May. So
fantastic. That's like a very professional project in the corporate world, where you would have a sophisticated Gantt graph and then different timelines, sub-projects, and then the end, let's say, targets for the semester. And what I'm curious about really, and I really think though, from my own experience, is that you would need to write it down into a curriculum, phenomenon-based learning curriculum that would give the guidelines and the manuals for teachers, most of all, and principals. And then you have this coaching, supportive coaching, of course, as a service that you can provide.
Yes, and I have had a lot of different international keynote speaks from the musical pedagogy already. It has been quite successful in a global level. So people are very keen on it. But you asked just right question from me. How it adapt to core curriculum easily is my answer. So it's just important to change mindset from just the personal work and class level work to whole school community level.
Yeah, I think that's the key, and you cannot emphasize it enough. You really have to go and push that message so much, and really make sure that the children understand that, okay, we're not just learning how to write something in English. We're writing a script for this big musical. We're going to have this big performance and studio recording session on a CD, as you had. Maybe you can talk about that before you talk about the end product and what you could, let's say, promote and show to the world as a concrete product. Talk a little bit about the auditions that you had. You said you had kind of work applications. You had these auditions also for the different roles and so on. Talk more about that, how that worked.
You mean main roles on a musical and the manuscript team?
In general, for the different positions, the students had to audition maybe in front of you. If I remember, you mentioned something like that once.
Yes.
So they had to audition and show kind of their projects and to apply for the musical precisely.
Yes. It's important to activate children and get their very new roles in school community and find out I think that their skills and how easily they can start to develop their creative learning level to higher level, and they find out themselves that there is a lot of limitations. For example, when you just work with books and work with the normal structural things at school, so it's important, really valuable for children to get better understanding of their personal strengths and good self-confidence as a learner and just human being.
And that is very strongly highlighted in the latest curriculum in Finland, let's say the individualized learning paths, and that you really combine strengths, work in teams to collaborate, and maybe that not everyone has to learn everything.
Yes.
And what would be your experience and recommendations when it comes to the curriculum question? Because many see that as an issue, that we have this curriculum in this country, so we're stuck to this, but then really not understanding that a phenomenon-based learning approach can include everything you're doing, but towards a new, let's say, common vision in the school that is like a phenomenon that you're developing. How would your basic, let's say, tips be for people to have this mindset shift to understand that, we don't have to change the curriculum to incorporate phenomenon-based learning?
No, because it's important to understand that, for example, at my school, now when we haven't done anymore now during several years musicals, we have done phenomenon-based learning weeks. And we have during autumn term, we have 2 weeks phenomenon-based learning weeks. And on spring term, we have 2 weeks phenomenon-based learning weeks. And in autumn term, we take different vision for the theme we have chosen. We have had, for example, sustainability, how our school saves the world is one theme for 1 year. Then we have had how our school reads, how we inspire each other for reading. And then we do different projects with reading. One theme has been how to develop very positive interaction culture at school community. What can I do by myself and what we all can do to strengthen very positive atmosphere. And one theme has been how to develop well-being culture at school community. And for example, now we have chosen our theme for next year. It will be vision for the future. So when we started to plan this phenomenon-based learning theme, teachers start to plan how they contribute children to plan together with teacher those phenomenon-based themes. And we give a lot of space for children to just get inspiration and motivation for learning that they can choose using their own interest for the theme. So they have freedom to choose where they want to concentrate on and what kind of research they want to do for that point. And I think that it's important to understand when our classes study phenomenon-based learning weeks, during phenomenon-based learning weeks, they just have a lot of freedom to just concentrate on different subjects. And in a longer term, it doesn't matter how can you separate mother tongue lesson and geography, for example, if you try to do project work, and if you write something, and if you want to translate it in English. It's so easy to have holistic understanding of learning and different subjects. It's not so necessary during every week just focus on during one lesson to one subject. You can learn really on a higher level, I think, when you have this kind of meaningful, full of inspiration, holistic learning project together.
And that brings me to ask, how do you work with evaluation? Because that's a very important topic for many as well. And how do you work with it, and how would you recommend others abroad that are very focused on the curriculum and the testing, standardized testing,
Yes.
and the exams, that they have the system that is mostly a tradition rather than a necessity that people still think is mandatory?
Yes. But I want to. My message is that we can't just control all the time what children are learning. We need to give inspiration and motivation for the learning in different ways. So I think that, for example, at my school, we have very, very traditional national mathematics and mother tongue tests yearly for each student. So we take really good care that we don't have any dropouts, for example, at my school. We want to support all children to get so high quality learning level it's possible for them. So I think that when you take good care with traditional test of learning, you can have easily, for example, couple of weeks, inspirative phenomenon-based learning weeks. But it's very important that we take full responsibility from children learning and learning level. So these are both sides of education. And for example, during phenomenon-based learning weeks, we have project works so that we have, for example, exhibition for parents. And we present, each class is present for parents, those phenomenon-based learning products they have done. And before it, they present to each other inside classroom. And then they evaluate how well they have succeeded. They make self-evaluation. Then there can be a group of students who give feedback for them, and teacher can give feedback. And teacher, it can be part of, for example, our term evaluation and assessment, that we give number. How did this team, for example, succeed in phenomenon-based learning project? It can be part of assessment, part of evaluation. You just need to use not so traditional ways to evaluate it. And I think it's important to understand that self-evaluation is important, and then that there is peer evaluation, and then you can get feedback from all the class, for example. And of course, it's important that when we open this learning, and we have, for example, this phenomenon-based learning week exhibition, and each children can see each other productions. It's wonderful for children to learn with all school community level.
Definitely. And how do you communicate that, or how is it understood on a child level, that it's not an emphasis on the test result per se, but it's really a focus on the learning process? How do you communicate that, let's say, learning process versus test results? And how is the feeling among students regarding the pressure, which also relates to the well-being culture? But because that's a huge let's say, misconception when you emphasize tests, which causes stress that makes it more difficult for students to learn than when you don't have the emphasis on test, but rather on the learning process. And then you have this test maybe as a random thing that you automatically perform better on if you have focused on the learning process without the stress. I don't know if that resonates with your
Yes,
way of
I think
communicating
it's important to develop resilience for children too, and it's important that they get experience of, for example, traditional tests and a little bit stressful things. But on the other hand, I think that there isn't black and white learning. It's important to just give freedom to learn and without control. So that give much more motivation for children, that they have feeling of freedom. So that supports them well-being, and it's really good to have both of sides of traditional tests and this freedom of learning.
And how do you communicate that when you, let's say, coach international educators on, let's say, the transition towards more freedom? Because many teachers abroad are afraid of giving the control, so to say, to the students, to the learners. They don't really trust that model, or they haven't experienced it, and might not be willing to experience the initial chaos when students try to control their self-evaluation, for example.
I think it has been very important that we have took, for example, our families, our parents together to understand what kind of assessment culture we have and how we evaluate children. And for example, we have so great structures to support children positive development and learning. And for example, we have Learning Bridge Parents Week on the autumn term, and we reflect together with teacher, parents and child how child have learned and what kind of strengths he or she has, and what kind of dreams they have, and everything like that. So it's very deep discussion together. So we want to start to develop this kind of understanding and analyzing learning assessment for children that they started from first grade. So it seems to be a little bit challenging, but when they started on first grade, they are only 7 years to evaluate themselves and analyze different aspects, different subjects, different skills, different strengths they have, and for example, what kind of dreams they have. They start to do this process from first grade. They are really professional when they are on a 5th and 6th grade, because it's so unbelievable how important it is just not control with tests and give numbers. It's much more important to develop children learning and personals just a holistic way.
Fantastic. So before we go to, let's say, a more digital focus, I think that there still are challenges that you have faced, maybe not so much in your own school, since you have built the culture since 20 years, maybe almost. But when you give recommendations abroad, what are the main, let's say, challenges for people to understand this approach? What do you feel as something that is critical to focus on in the communication or coaching, as you do coaching as well to leaders?
I haven't met that. I think, for example, some different cultures can feel they are scaring this kind of system, that we don't control our teachers. We give a lot of freedom and autonomy for teachers to work, and principals support, facilitates and give positive feedback and coach teachers, and we don't control so much children. So I think somewhere it's very scaring and they feel stressful. If you don't control every lesson child, how can he or she learn? It's of course, it's global challenge, because tradition of this control system is very, very strong, and it's long time, it's long history for it.
Definitely.
And that's somehow, but I think typically people feel very fresh when they hear this kind of education system, and they think, is it really possible that school could be so nice place, and learning could be joyful, and children could enjoy at school, and they have very high level of well-being? It is possible.
And before we go into, let's say, the opportunities and challenges in the digital world, tell me more about the awards that you have received as, let's say, the best school in Finland, these kind of recognitions that might not be common in Finland, and you are maybe not used to focusing on excellence in Finland, since the story of Finnish education is basically to be able to provide a good education for all with a quality mindset. But then we might not highlight enough the excellent achievements that come as a result of that, and pioneers and people who really take a more proactive approach, especially now during the digital age, where we cannot just wait for new solutions to come when the students are more savvy when it comes to technology than the educators. Then we have to really be strong on the pedagogical side. But before we go to the digital space, so can you mention a few of the awards related to bullying and these kind of things that I think is very important to highlight?
Yes. We have got. I have got. I think personally, my biggest award is that I got Finland 100th anniversary. I got this innovation award, and I got it from Great Leadership. I created the Creative Fire model, and it was innovation, and my role was to develop leadership program from that. And I got 10,000 euros for support for it, and it's personally for me it's really great, because it was great to get that kind of feedback that my way to lead school it's really professional, and I have succeeded well. And it seems that I have been on a right way, because, for example, our school community, when we have surveys for leadership and how our well-being level of our staff is, we have the highest level, nearly maximum is 100%. For example, our coaching leadership level is 100%, and our atmosphere of our work community is nearly 100%, and our agility to make development work and react to changes is nearly 100%, and it's wonderful. And how it affects on our student level is that, for example, weekly experience of bullying for our students, it's only 1.8%. We have had last year survey that asked this question, do you have experience of bullying? And I think it's lowest research result in Finland, because typically average is about 9%. And there are schools when there are about 20% experience of bullying, and 1.8%. It's really low. And what else is that when we have this wonderful staff and professional school culture with our staff and students, our parents, they trust us. And our results in parent surveys are best in all Helsinki level. It's 6.4 from maximum 7. And for example, parents experience that our students are on a safe at school is 6.8 from 7. So, and how our staff, for example, react to bullying, they trust so well that it's nearly 6.7 and 8. So we don't have any negative communication between parents or with our staff or with students. We have got this wonderful, peaceful school culture together with all our community. But it's hard work, but it's very valuable work.
Definitely, yeah, that's impressive. So let's finish off with focusing on digital learning a little bit. how do you, let's say, address digital learning, considering all the tools and applications that both students have access to outside of school, and then all the jungle of technological tools that are available for schools, for teachers, from all levels? How do you work and approach that part?
We develop all the time our digital learning. It's important just that we have some experts, named experts at my work community, some teacher who just concentrate all the time to get the best tools, how we use really high quality digital tools for our learning. And of course, we typically concentrate on and focus on only, I think, maximum 5 different tools. And it's important that we develop teachers' basic skills. We have a coaching system at my school community that our teacher coach themselves there. And for example, we have different responsibilities, and we have these couple of teachers who coach each other and all our staff with digital skills, very agile way. And they do it with our formal teacher during our formal teacher meeting times, but they do it just in a flexible way in everyday school life. So it's very, very effective way. And it's so, what is important, it's cheapest way just to make development work. It's €0, just to focus on staff who have different kind of skills and areas, that we can build an open learning community together, an active learning community, and we know what kind of strengths we have inside our own learning community. Of course, we give opportunity to teachers to coach themselves outside of our school building too, but that's very, very important part of our way how we develop our digital tools. And all the time we want to limit and focus on couple of things, and then it's important that teachers who have more interest for it, they can use, of course, 20 different tools if they want. We don't make limitations.
I think that was a good point, that you have limitations to some extent, but what would be your main method of assuring that you keep the pedagogical strength in the application of the tools, which I see worldwide has been losing, let's say, power, or you have teachers becoming less and less powerful or strong in their pedagogical approach, since they don't fully understand the technological tools that are in use enough, and feel they need to learn more about the technical stuff before they can use it in the classroom in a pedagogical way.
Yes, I think that's our strength, that we have started 2004 to develop. Of course, there is new teachers all the time, and new generation of teacher. It's much more easier to them to learn. And of course, because in Finland, principal can choose own stuff. We don't have any department of education who choose stuff for us. I have personal right to choose my teachers. I have got very, very professional teacher who have strong motivation to use digital tools and skills to use them. And it's very good situation, because we have been top innovation school in Helsinki over 10 years ago already, and we have a lot of facilities. We have facilitated so well our digital learning opportunities, and we have, for example, nearly 70% of our students have a personal laptop. We have iPads. We have different kind of tools to use digital learning.
Yeah, and my question is also about, the application of the tools, because for me, it doesn't matter if you have laptops for everyone. For me, that might be even negative, versus having one laptop per 4 children if you want to focus on project-based learning and collaboration. It might be better to have only one laptop and one smartphone.
It depends on situation.
I'm
Sometimes
curious about your model there, like how because I know you have a very strong pedagogical background since the beginning, before the digitalization became a thing. But I think that many educators who don't have this strong confidence in their pedagogical knowledge, if they don't have a strong pedagogical, let's say, training, like the teacher training program in Finland is very strong compared to many countries in the world. So the teachers might not feel that the pedagogical knowledge is enough. And then they lose their ability of using technology in a productive way. So they let the kids use technology maybe in too technical ways that might not have a, let's say, a phenomenon-based learning approach that is student-centered, but rather something that becomes too technical, and then they just trust the provider of content in a digital space, and then they learn to consume content faster in a nicer way, but there's not really a pedagogical innovation happening.
I think that it's important to understand that digital tools, they are only tools of learning. You must create with children meaningful learning aims and goals. And I think that beforehand I respected a lot of this way to make short movies. It's excellent way, and it's excellent part of each project, I think. But on the other hand, I think that even more important now is that children just make with teams, for example, some research-based projects, and they use many different elements of learning. They use digital tools, and they make short movies, they use digital pictures, and so on, that they make a wonderful project. And I think that that's something I respect a lot of our teachers, that they, for example, 5th and 6th graders, they do so great projects and research-based projects together collaboratively with teams, pairs and teams, and together. And it's unbelievable what kind of learning results children can get. So I think that it's important that there is a common platform, digital platform for the all school community, that children start to learn it even from 1st grade. They start to use it. It can be, I don't mention any different tools, but it can be whatever tool, but it's important to coach its teacher to use it very well, and it's important that children start to get good routine to work with it. And it's important that everything is running well, and children can just find out their personal capacity of learning when they do these free project works.
Yeah, I think that's key what you just said, that you have the coaching for teachers being properly made and taken care of, and then that the students have the freedom to experiment and learn within the set rules and boundaries, but really the freedom to experiment in their process.
Yes.
So then I want to ask you for recommendations for teachers and principals, educators all around the world who might be very afraid of the now very fast development of technology, looking at advanced artificial intelligence and so on. You being a very brave educator since early on, and let's say willing to take risks and try things. Maybe you have the authority, you have the knowledge enough to take those risks. But what do you think would be the key thing for educators to think about now when they might feel that they're losing control over the development of technology? Should they try to forbid it more, learn more, let the kids teach them? Or what are your general thoughts of recommendations how to look at the development of technology?
I think that we need to be curious, but we need to take full responsibility of children's learning. So it's important to take both of sides, consider them. And I think that it's really important to be curious and think about really the vision of education and learning in the future. So see much more opportunities than treatments. Because of course we need to be critical and suspicious and think about, is this good way or bad way? And for example, now we talk about artificial intelligence and what kind of risks we have with it. But then at school level, for example, there is a lot of different really great opportunities. For example, how to use artificial intelligence is that children can do their tasks with laptops, computers, and then they get really automatically feedback from their work, and even verbal feedback. So it's important that one teacher is one teacher with typically 20-25 children. This kind of support is very effective way to support children. So I hope that we find out very good opportunities and very good solutions how it affects on learning. And we focus on that point so we don't need to see all treatments all the time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Any final words of encouragement to educators around the world, and what would be a good way to find you, to find out more about your school projects, and about you as a person, if someone is interested in your coaching opportunities?
Yes, I have my company is AMJ Finnoedu, and I have websites. You can see my websites, and because I have concept of full Finnish high quality school system and different coaching possibilities there. And I think that that's one way. And then, of course, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all possibilities, and then emails and whatever. You can find me easily.
Fantastic. So thank you very much, Anna-Marie, and I hope to follow your progress and your stories and have a follow-up conversation very soon again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.